Dark Star, Rory was right? Come on, he's never been right about anything. Well, maybe not anything, but he was right. Tell me more. What is he right about?
Well, Rory's been coming around to the point of, hey, we need a super tour. We need the best players playing against each other every week. So Rory had these comments at the Genesis where he talked about the comparison between soccer or football to the rest of the world, where there's a Premier League that feeds all the other tours are going to feed into this Premier League, and there should be just 80 guys, right? So you have an 80 guy field 20 times a year. He would like to see 24 events, 20 events plus the 4 majors totaling 24, and that's all he wants to play, and that's plenty of golf. We can go right into the fact that one of the stupid things the PGA Tour has done is they've diluted their talent where there's a tournament every week. And that's just stupid. Nobody ever shows up to these. Nobody wants to see. What is it? They're in Mexico this week, right? And I don't even know anybody. And I follow golf. I'm the person that golf should be promoting to a middle-aged, European, right? So I don't understand the whole concept of, am I supposed to watch the tournament in Mexico this week that I don't know anybody who's there? So, yes, that's what I want to see. I want 20 events a year with the top players. So I'm actually interested. Hold my interest. Article after article is coming out how the PGA, is it in a slump or is it the new reality? Well, of course it's the new reality because all the personalities went and played in LIV. And, we can get into, I don't want to dominate here, but we can get into why LIV could easily morph into this Premier League. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wasn't that the whole idea? I mean,
Exactly.
it seems to me that Mr. McIlroy is simply chosen to, whether it's as directed or perhaps through some kind of consulting arrangement that maybe he's arrived at. Is he saying what we need to do is LIV? But I can't say that, of course. So what we need to do is a whole new tour. And of course I'm thinking, well, isn't that the framework agreement? Wasn't that the whole idea? But so what's old is new again, was old again is new again. So Rory is simply saying we need what was in the framework agreement to come true, where all the tours form a new super tour, and nobody owns that at all. So there is a little bit of a important detail there, which is, the P-Gate, the PGA Tour Enterprise, would not own the Super Tour, at least the way Rory laid it out. But I hear you. He's just saying that the LIV and the PIF were correct, and we need a Super Tour. Come on, PGA Tour, get with the program. Is that not what he's saying?
Yeah, right. It's interesting that the disgruntled player now is disgruntled with the PGA Tour because of the lack of competition. And that's why the Rahms left and the DJs left. And eventually you're going to have more quality players on LIV if LIV just doesn't become the premier event. And Rory's sitting around going, even at LA, I'm like, first of all, again, it's California in the winter. The weather wasn't that great. They fortunately only had a little bit of rain. And Rory's like, this just doesn't. Rory is sitting there going, and you can tell by his expression, this is not exciting me. I want to play with Rahm, and I want to play with Cam Smith. I want to play against everybody who's the best, not just who's left, not just the leftovers on the PGA Tour.
You know what I'm thinking about right now? I'm not thinking about Riviera at all. I'm thinking about dinner reservations.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, let's say, they always talk about, he finished out of the top 20th at that Riviera. He had Sunday struggles. He just wanted to get off the course on Sunday. It's like, oh God, whatever. I gotta get out of here. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to the press anymore. I made the mistake of opening my mouth and saying what should happen in the world of golf. And now I'm going to get chastised again. I can't win.
He's made a whole career out of that.
I'm leaving. I'm getting on my plane and I'm going home now. And I'm not going to appear maybe until the Masters because I'm fed up with this. But let's get into what he said a little bit more, because it makes perfect sense to have no cut 80-man events. Geez, what does that sound like?
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, the PGA Tour has been copying LIV without saying it for, the last couple of years. They've been moving to a LIV model. And from a personal note, I will tell you, I did take my boys to the 2016 U.S. Open, and at one of the days was washed out, completely washed out. And so the day that we were going to be there for 2 days, one of the days was completely washed out. And the second day, at the time, my boys were Ricky and Rory fans, and they didn't show up to the course that day. They were not going to play because of that late, early start type situation where, if you started, anyway, it's just the way it worked out, and it was a shame. So from a personal standpoint, like I said, if we show up to an event and there's 80 people and there's no cut, and maybe you go off of both tees, you probably can't do a shotgun with 80 people, but they should be all on the course as much as possible with the same weather conditions. That's another big thing. Whenever we have these swings in, Florida, early in winter in Florida and winter in California, you're playing in some horrendous weather at times. And if you get the wrong weather draw, you're done. You can't win.
Yeah.
So that's just,
I like the shotgun start for that. For getting the TV guys that are just like, oh, please give us a shotgun start. And the marketers and the advertisers. But different than that, just from a player's point of view, I want to be in the same conditions as everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the big criticisms with Rory was, well, the young Americans, they can't travel. They're not used to traveling. I'm like, the young Americans aren't going to be in those 80 players. They don't need to worry about traveling. And, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking here, you want to have half the events in the U.S. Rory mentioned that. Well, between the four majors, the Memorial, Bay Hill, Genesis, maybe an intro for the PGA. You got to move the PGA back to the players. So you'll have the players back to May. You move the PGA back to August. Let's make golf a summer sport again, so we're not having frost delays. Just off the top of my head, it's a very simple concept to start in Australia, Asia, Middle East in January, February, and then move back to the United States for the bulk of your season. This isn't rocket science here. This is an easy, simple thing to do. And there's only one thing standing in the way, and that's what we've talked about multiple times, the aristocracy. They do not like to give up power. They do not want to give up their toy easily.
No. Well, they won't give it up. They will be forced into something new, perhaps, but they're not going to volunteer to give up. No. You know how hard it was for us to accumulate all this control? I'm not going to give it away to you. What are you kidding? Unless they are forced to. And that could be a financial thing, although probably not anytime soon. It's not going to be financial. So what would make them, the only other option would be to crater the game. Who knows? Maybe the LIV Plan B, which we've discussed a few times now, and it's on the podcast in a lot more detail. So go see that on the podcast, the audio podcast. The Plan B could certainly entail damaging the majors temporarily by clearly denying them the best players. How do you pull that off is a good question. But if that were to happen, either on purpose or just in the normal state of affairs, that some of the best players were not invited, then you got a real problem. And the majors are aware of that. As we've said, Darkstar, the majors are in a little more of a tenuous position than many would think. And it's not lost on me. God forbid that Caleb Surratt goes out and does something spectacular. And, and there he's not in the Masters or in any of the majors. That would look bad.
Well, commenting on, just not to change course too much, but obviously the Masters just invited Joaquin Niemann, which is almost more of a divisive move because obviously Taylor Gooch was last year's LIV champion, and has no path.
Well, Niemann won the Australian Open, majors. So if they didn't, they have to cover their flanks for what I just said. If you don't have Niemann there, you look bad.
exactly. No, I agree. They do look bad.
I think it's as
But you've
simple
got
as
a
that.
lot of other guys winning tournaments. We look at the tournament in Oman, and the leaderboard is just the guys on Live that have Asian Tour status.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
Let me pivot for just 1 second and say, because we've arrived at this little moment where I can say the following: it is stunning. It is nothing less than stunning that the players, the employees, are letting the management team dictate everything. Wow. You got to be kidding me. And what do I mean by that? If the players that play on, all the tours really, but let's focus on Live and the PGA Tour. If those players got together and decided to, unionize or just form a syndicate, doesn't have to officially be a union. If they would just get on the same page, it's over forever for the aristocracy. That's what happens when the peasants finally get it together. You have, a revolution, and the aristocracy loses, not because they gave up, they were defeated. So if the peasants, the players, being the peasants in this example, got together, if Rahm and Rory and, Spieth and the top guys could just get it together and then lead the troops and say, we're not going. No, there won't be a Masters this year because we're not going to be there.
yeah.
Then it's over. Game over. The players can then dictate terms of what they want. We want a super tour. You guys go work it out. We're sending our legal team there to represent the players, and we can certainly afford it to do that. The top guys certainly have the money to pay the legal fees and make it happen. And it's a baseball strike, right? It's a strike. They go on strike.
Right. And the problem that you're seeing right now is they've taken the Tiger Woods and the Jordan Spieth and they've paid them off, and the peasants followed Tiger Woods, which was the silliest.
Well, maybe that's
thing.
where Rory is. Take and run with that. Maybe Rory is simply saying, we need a strike. And you guys, Tiger and a handful of others, are working against the players.
Yeah, that's the whole point that I was going to make. Is Tiger was brought on the board to destroy the deal to keep the peasants in line. The players didn't realize, the rank and file players, they thought, and I can't believe they were this naive, but obviously they thought that Tiger was brought in to benefit, for their benefit.
He's one of us. He's one of us.
I struggle saying that without, laughing out loud. So, Spieth had mentioned in this article, though, now that we have private equity money, we don't need the PIF. Tiger is obviously completely anti-PIF because he wants that Tomorrow Golf League to work somehow and be an event. I mean, Tiger said it should be an event, as we said before. Him breaking Sam Snead's record on a simulator would be the worst thing that could ever happen to this. It should kill the sport. They should just, put it in the coffin. So yes, Rory is right in the sense that he is finally woken up to reality and going, guys, this is ridiculous. What's going on? Why are we siding with a tour that has kept us down? Think about the fact that if you were a PGA Tour member, to go and play in an event somewhere else in the world, you had to get permission. I'm an independent contractor, and I have to go get permission to go play golf somewhere else. I mean, imagine if you're a carpenter and you're working for, you're building a home somewhere and you have to get permission from the home builder to go build another home. I mean, it's not even, it makes no sense at all.
It only works if you're a monopoly. That's why monopolies like to be monopolies. They're like, well, you could go do that as an independent, but if you're driving for FedEx as an independent contractor, you can't drive for anybody else. Well, how am I an independent contractor then? Well, you can refuse to, you don't have to sign a deal to drive for us. Go drive wherever you want, but you can't drive here. Right. Well, that's fine if there's more than one place to work.
A great example of that is the whole Uber driver situation where some of these states and cities are like, trying to ban the independent contractors and trying to force them to become part of the union. And that's just wrong. And what's going on at the PGA Tour and what's been going on, and Phil and Greg have pointed this out for many years, is just simply wrong. And you have Rory now who's like, hey, guys, I really don't want to be part of this, because Rory does have feelings. And Rory probably right now realizes hey, the rest of these guys are screwed. They have no chance to accumulate points, to make a good living like I've been able to make.
Yeah, that would
So
be
that's why he's essentially defecting.
well.
Rory has gone to live without actually going to live.
We only need question his motives. So are his motives truly because he is siding with the workers? Maybe. Or is he been bought off by, say, Piff and promised things or given things or has a contract that says if this comes true, then this happens? Either one of those are possible.
Well,
You could frame this and say, no. He's doing this altruistically. He has, because of who he is and where he's from, a working class family in Northern Ireland that's gone through some trouble, some real trouble, in the Troubles, and emerged to be this really wealthy, accomplished guy. But he's good friends with a bunch of soccer players who probably have similar working class backgrounds. Maybe he is just, hey, man, this rubs me the wrong way. I'm not siding. I can't side with the aristocracy any longer on this particular issue. And that's framing the whole thing as a class struggle, which I think Phil Mickelson has always done, framed it that way.
Yeah, right. And I think in Rory's case, Rory's situation, more than anything, he's fed up. We talked about when some of these initial guys, the Bryson DeChambeaus, the Dustin Johnson especially, went to live in the prime of their career, risking everything because they were just so fed up with the way the PGA Tour ran things, the rules, the regulations, the secrecy where this player got this, but this player didn't get that. I hearken back to, remember when Jordan Spieth didn't play in enough events and he should have been suspended for a year and they just slapped him on the wrist. And you're like, really? Can you imagine if a rank and file player did that? They'd been demoted so far down, they couldn't find him with a wetsuit. So
yeah, it's a class struggle. It is. There's an aristocracy in place here that wants all the power. They've formed their own union called the OWGR to control everything because they know the majors are the linchpin that keeps all the players in a line. That's what keeps the players lined up. And the only remedy, the most obvious remedy is for the workers, the players, to unite. And once they did that, it'd be over for the aristocracy. And the aristocracy is acutely aware of this, which they always are because that's what they think about day in and day out. They don't have to struggle to put food on the table. The guy in the castle is always worried about the peasants storming the castle. But the peasants are busy trying to live, and they don't have the time and energy and wherewithal to form a united front. And when they do get that figured out, which does happen, it does occasionally, then they win. Almost always, not always, but almost always. And if the players did that, the ironic part here is, and then we can start to get out on this particular topic, but the ironic thing is that the guys that the players trusted, and maybe it's just one guy, but probably not, Tiger, Spieth, Thomas, Scott, those board members, right? They're not to be trusted. They are screwing you. You just don't realize it. They're keeping the monopoly going. And who did they bring in to do that, Darkstar? Let's just point out who came in to keep the monopoly going.
Tiger.
Well, no. The other guys, the other critical group. SSG.
Oh, the SSG.
SSG guys. Now, do the SSG guys look like peasants to you? No.
Yeah, no.
No. Billionaires all. Even if they came from a nothing position, which some of them did, like John Henry, made it. They're mostly self-made, not all. They don't, obviously, they're happy to be part of the aristocracy, unfortunately.
Yeah. They're happy to join in, continue this ruse that is the PGA Tour. Players owned, or don't they say like the players own it or something ridiculous like that? It's a non-profit organization owned by the players.
Well,
something
to that point, before we get out here, who has seen out here in our audience and Darkstar, who has seen the details on what the PGA Tour nonprofit and PGA Tour Enterprises, how things are going to shape up? They have released nothing. I haven't seen anything. yeah, here's what's going to happen. The PGA Tour, the nonprofit's going to transfer certain assets to PGA Tour Enterprise, and all the tournaments that you're familiar with, all of that is going to be rolled up into PGA Tour Enterprises, and the nonprofit is going to continue as just the charitable sort of partner. Because it's, what, or is PGA Tour nonprofit going to own PGA Tour Enterprises, which is the for-profit piece that they could own? Technically, you can do that, but they have said zip. We're just supposed to take on faith? You
Sure.
PGA Tour players are crazy. You're crazy not to be all over this issue. And to trust Tiger Woods, the narcissist, to trust him with doing your bidding? Oh, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, the right. It's crazy to even think in those terms, that they are so, deluded to think that anybody has their interest at heart.
Nope.
That's nuts.
If it works out for them, it'll be accidental.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll happen, but maybe not.
So to kind of come full circle and wrap this up, where Rory is correct in this situation, what golf needs is LIV to take over as a premier event. My last comment is this whole tomorrow golf league, where it's always tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what eventually, when it gets close again, and they start trying to make this in a, as Tiger said, official events, and it's going to be the team golf for the PGA. I really, at this point, now see Tiger and Rory really parting ways, where Rory says, I don't have the time. I'm moving my family outside the United States. As we said, he's building a house outside London. And then the big question is Jordan Spieth going to then move in and take Rory's place? Is Jordan Spieth now become a never piffer, a never piffer? Is he become that in the tank with the PGA Tour? Has he become that sort of like, hey, we got to keep this going at any cost? That's why Jordan was silent for so long and didn't join Tomorrow Golf initially. So that's really my only curiosity in the next few months.
It would not be hard for me to believe. It would not be hard for me to believe that Spieth has a similar goal with very different motivations than Tiger. That Spieth just simply doesn't like the idea of his sport having control from the Middle East. Perhaps. And he wouldn't be alone in that department, right?
Right. And I agree with you there. My only point for Jordan, of course, is it's killing his golf game. I mean, he doesn't look happy out there. Mm-hmm. Remember how he doesn't look, I don't know another way to say it. He doesn't look happy out there. When he's not happy out there, he's not playing well. When he's not smiling and kind of almost joking, and when he chips one in, he kind of smiles and says, "Hey, sorry guys, I'm just playing my game," and he just doesn't have that kind of. There's no vim and vigor. He's not playing with gusto like he used to, and I that's really sad. And they have banked their hopes on a Tiger return and a Jordan Spieth superstar. And if they don't get Jordan Spieth happy mentally, he's just not going to be there.
It's not working. I wouldn't, if I were SSG, I would not be putting my full faith into Spieth and Thomas, all this playing great. Yeah. And it needs to happen soon. We're not talking, hey, they get it together in 2 years. They need some guys to step up.
Right. When the media,
including a Hovland, including a Xander, those guys need to step up as well.
But when the media that's in the tank for the PGA Tour is now talking about slump versus the new reality, there's a lot of people concerned that they just can't keep a lid on this any longer.
Yeah. Well, and we're tumbling towards the next Ryder Cup. And I'll finish my comments on this for Rory. From Rory's point of view, we disparaged him, no doubt, with his little rant on the 18th green over La Cava and Cantlay. And I think Rory was wrong, totally wrong. And I think I know where that came from. Go watch that episode. But that is a video. I'll give him some snaps because it's possible that he was genuinely ticked. I'm not talking about the 18th green particularly, but just the Ryder Cup in general. That coming out of Whistling Straits, where he cried on camera about the getting smoked, and then coming back in Rome and dominating as a team. And he really does. I mean, he is a soccer fan. Maybe he just really loves that energy. That's understandable. Who doesn't, right? A great soccer match can be that way. And he's looking at this Europe versus the U.S., the working class versus the upper class, the outsiders versus the insiders, and he's chosen sides from an emotional point of view. And maybe for the first time in his life, he's chosen the right side and getting back to his roots in Ireland, where, there was obviously a massive problem between the haves and the have-nots. The British-backed Northern Irish, that is the very definition of an aristocracy, trying to take over the Ireland for hundreds of years, and that's all there. It's baked in his cake from the McIlroy family because they're Catholics. And now he's choosing the side of the working class. Is that part of this, Dark Star, in your view? Is that part of where he's coming from, his roots?
Well, that's a huge part of it. He wasn't brought up like Tiger to be just a stone cold killer. Rory has been blessed. I mean, and to some degree, when you are blessed with a natural ability that Rory has, there's potentially, as I've mentioned, there's some guilt there potentially. And now he just needs to, if he realizes, I think, and the people around him realize, if he's going to be a golfer, he needs to divorce himself from this situation, the PGA, live, etc. He needs to concentrate on golf, concentrate on his family, and move back, like I said, to Europe, where he's really truly friends, rekindle relationships with people like Sergio and continue them with John Rahm and the people on the European Ryder Cup. And I think this is where, for Rory to relinquish himself from his board responsibilities early to, obviously he's significantly favoring the live model. He realizes, hey, this is just the whole thing about the PGA Tour is wrong. And he's coming around to the Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelsons, who just said, I'm fed up with this. I can no longer be an employee of something that is so counterproductive, so dismissive towards its employees.
Yeah, it's corrupt. It's a corrupt organization in a lot of ways. And if he sticks with this, because Rory could easily do a 180. He is famous for those.
He'd be up to 720.
He would be. Okay. He is Mr. 540 so far. Presently, yes. So if he goes back and supports the aristocracy, then that would be a shame. But for now, I mean, lacking any of that evidence, that hasn't. Right now, he seems to be getting in touch with his roots, and that's a good thing, because if you're in touch with who you are, it makes everything better. He'll be happier. His life will start to really unfold in a lot of other ways, in addition to the great success that he's had so far. But maybe his marriage has something to do with it too, Dark Star. I mean, that's a big change for him. He's a father now, and they probably want to have more. And it's just, he's evolving, whereas a Tiger Woods is not evolving personally. Thank God for Charlie and his daughter. At least he's got them, and he does apparently love them. But other than that, man, the guy you got to wonder how happy he is. Does he have an identity outside of golf? No. I'll be the first one to say that. No.
Yeah.
You take golf away from Tiger, what's he got?
Yeah. Well, and that's why he's desperately trying to hold on.
Exactly right.
League.
Tiger's not a person. Yeah. He doesn't have all the other stuff that makes your life flourish. He doesn't have that. He's got golf. That's what I got. That's who I am. And if I don't have that, I don't know who I am. And that's a big point of separation between Rory and Tiger. I hope so. I'm rooting for both of them, really. But, if we can get Rory headed in that direction, great. Good for him.
Yeah, and I think my last comment, Rory, I'm thinking this is the true Rory. And I'd like to see, again, him smiling and having fun on the golf course. And that's why I think he played very well and did very well when the European Tour early in the season was in the Middle East. I think, did he win an event and finish second or something along those lines? That is a different Rory McIlroy that's over there playing in Europe that is smiling and having fun than the one that shows up at the Genesis and has to deal with the United States with the PGA Tour and the United States media, where he's just like, guys, really? He threw his hands up and said, yes, we need a premier Super Tour Champions League, guys. That's it. End of discussion. I don't want to comment anymore. He makes a few more comments. He storms off. It destroys his golf game. So, Rory, get back to golf and don't worry about our media.
Easier said than done. He likes that microphone for whatever reason. All right, well, I'm going to leave it there. B Team is out.
Dr. Darkstar's out.
If you'd like more Thinking Man shows and topics, then subscribe to our audio podcast. That is where you will get at least 3 new shows every week and topics that will never get to YouTube. And there are a lot of those that we like to talk about that will never get to YouTube. Use the link in the video description below. And thank you again for being a fan.